like it, Joey.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. So I thought it'd be cool to go over the history of our healthcare system. It's a really neat story. It's not really like, we're not going to go into huge detail, but I think it's really important. People don't realize the structure that we have in place today, where it came from, and how different our health was and what we did for our health back in around the year 1900. So let's start there. Pre-1910, around 1900, do you guys know where we ranked in the world at health?
37.
No, not 37.
There's
Wow, how did you know that?
Yes, Laura.
What, 12th? I don't know.
We're ranked about 5th in the world.
That's amazing.
We're one of the healthiest countries in the world. Okay? Do you guys know where we're ranked today? Those of you who come to our
78,402.
lively group today.
There's not that many countries, Joey.
That's why they ranked us that.
I knew it.
Look at your notes, Joey.
That's probably in there.
You guys drink today. You guys are feisty.
Obviously not.
Last time,
What is
Joey.
happening?
It's Thanksgiving week. We're ready to party.
Oh
This
my
is for
God.
party.
You're gonna need a gavel to keep us in order.
God, I want you guys to realize something. What happened to us? How did we go from one of the healthiest countries in the world,
Money.
one of the
Well, the
least
FDA took
Easy,
over too,
Joey,
and that
easy,
didn't
buddy.
help.
Okay? So let's start here. What did healthcare look like before 1910?
It was all natural.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was awful.
Plants.
So I want you guys to kind of close your eyes and feel into this, okay? Feel into, there is a group of doctors called allopaths. Allopaths are what we call medical doctors today. And they had a main belief that you had to drive disease out of the body. So now close your eyes and I want you to think about a medical doctor around 1900. What do you think it was like? What kind of medications did they use around 1900?
Herbal. Yes.
So they actually didn't. An allopath did not use any herbs at all.
Didn't they use leeches?
So they did one thing called bloodletting.
Oh.
So I want you to think about this. They believed disease was an entity that you had to get out of you. So they would call bloodletting and getting all the humors or all the liquids out of your body. So they would use leeches. They would cut you open and bleed you out. Do things like that. Now they also thought you had to drive disease out by using medicines or really poisonous minerals.
Yeah.
So they would put in you like lead or mercury or things like that. They would actually put that stuff inside of you to try to kill off anything that's inside of you and get it out of you as well. What do you think about surgery back before 1900?
It was a big risk. So many people died.
So anesthesia wasn't even fully out yet. It was kind of a new science. So how many people do you think lined up for surgery?
No.
Right?
No anesthesia.
So how do you think this profession was doing pre-1910?
Not good.
Yeah, in fact, the American Medical Association was on the brink of bankruptcy. It was almost completely gone out of our country. Now this was the other thing. You had natural doctors, which means the biggest group in our country back before around 1900 were homeopaths. What's a homeopath believe? Anyone know?
Natural remedies, basically.
So they believe in natural herbal remedies typically, but essentially they use the frequency of something to stimulate the immune system. So what this group of natural doctors believe is that they believe that the body heals itself. So what they did was they would use procedures that stimulated the body's own healing capabilities. So it wasn't their responsibility to drive anything out. It was their responsibility to just make sure the body was working correctly, but that it was their own immune system or health system that was going to heal the body. Make sense?
Yeah.
So homeopath kind of stimulates the immune system. And they had these doctors called osteopaths. Now who here has heard of an osteopath?
Yeah,
They're around today.
Yeah.
The osteopaths around today were completely different than the osteopaths around in 1900. What an osteopath believed in was that blood was the healing agency of the body. So they would find where bones were misaligned and they would find blockages that were stopping blood flow. So they would go and they would adjust or manipulate the bones to put them back in place so blood could flow. Does that sound familiar? Kind of sounds like chiropractic, right? In fact, Dr. Stills, the guy who created osteopathy, used to debate Dr. Palmer. Because D.D. Palmer would talk about the nervous system, and he would talk about the blood. But essentially what an osteopath did was very similar to a chiropractor, but they would look at all the body and they would move things so that blood could flow more freely in the body. Okay? What about a naturopath? What's a naturopath do? Anyone know?
Is it the herbs?
Yeah, they use more herbs or natural remedies. So where these people got their beliefs was this. These people were into science, what they called science, and observation, a lot of lab work. These people were into, actually most of their beliefs came from the natives there too. So they would take their culture, they would take stuff from thousands of years and use that. So what herbs cured this or what was good for this condition, and that's how they got their information from. Who did more people go to?
Natural dogs.
Over here. This was a booming industry. By the way, how healthy were we? Very, very healthy. Okay. This was very, very, not used, like I said, the AMA was on the verge of bankruptcy. But then there was one man who changed healthcare just like that, literally overnight. Anyone know who owned Big Oil?
You gotta be kidding me. Why is he involved?
And then we came with Rockefeller Weed.
He needed more money.
So this is like the history of our healthcare system. So Rockefeller owned Big Oil. So in the day, what do you think most medication was made out of?
Oil.
There was petroleum in every piece of medication. So it was a very big opportunity. Him and Carnegie, so the AMA actually petitioned him to get involved, and they saw a massive opportunity. And what he did was he paid this person named, I think his name was Arthur Flexner. And this guy was not a doctor, had never studied healthcare before. But what he did was he went around to schools, and he would write reports up on how efficient or how good the schooling was on medical schools, homeopathic schools, naturopathic schools, even chiropractic schools. Okay? And what he ended up doing was writing a very biased paper called the Flexner Report, saying, hey, and by the way, funded completely by Rockefeller, stating, hey, medical doctors are very scientific, they're very professional, and these other schools have no science behind them. You should not go and see these other doctors. Okay, that's the Flexner Report. They also started to require licensing for schools. We'll get into that. But at the same time, Rockefeller and Carnegie put $55 million into medical schools. $550 million back in 1900. It's a lot of money. And you know what that is? Today they put about $20 billion in a year. Pretty crazy, right?
Yeah.
But there was an exchange for it. They said, wow, we're going to give you all of this money, but in exchange, what we would like is to have people from the Rockefeller Foundation and Carnegie Foundation to sit on your medical boards of your schools. And they obviously agreed to it. And literally overnight, just like that, these schools and the AMA, which is about to be bankrupt, all of a sudden became the most wealthy healthcare system in the United States. And just to show you how much this changed the industry. Oh, and by the way, and then in 1913, Rockefeller also started the International Health Commission, which means he was concerned about long-term healthcare or healthcare around the world at the same time. So he developed a couple programs. One was called the World Health Organization, and the other one is the National Institute of Health. These are supposedly like government agencies that are really caring about the well-being of our society, but what's funding all of it? You know, big money with big interest behind all of this. So this is where we're getting a lot of our information today. Okay? Government licensing for schools was another thing too. So, by the way, Rockefeller and Carnegie not only owned Big Oil and Big Steel and all this stuff, they also owned something very, very important in our country, and that is the media. So they actually started campaigns, and you can research this, and there's a big thing. I want to talk about a little bit of chiropractic history here. especially in the 1940s and 1930s. But they started campaigns not only promoting medicine, but what do you think they were doing to the natural doctors?
Oh, putting them down, putting.
Yeah. Has anyone heard the words quacks before? Calling doctors quacks? This is where it came from. So there was a national campaign to smear the names of natural doctors, saying they're unscientific, their stuff is just snake oil and all this other things that happens. So what ended up happening was in 1890 there were about, let's just take homeopathy for example, there were about 92 schools around the country for homeopathy. And around 1910, right before this happened, there was over 120, about 121 schools. So it's a growing, beautiful profession. In the next 10 years,
10 left?
about one school left.
Oh, wow.
That's how much it just killed off our healthcare, our natural healthcare. Now we take care of a lot of people here, and a lot of people not from this country. It's so much easier taking care of a lot of people from another country because what are their beliefs? Yeah. Do you guys know we're 5% of the world's population? Guess how much of the world's pharmaceuticals we take?
75, 80%.
Yeah, it used to be 80%, now it's 70, now it's 60. Why is that number going down? Is it because we're taking less drugs?
No.
The rest of the world.
The rest of the world is catching up.
Yeah.
So that's what's so scary about this stuff, right? But you can see like how this was a booming industry. Things were going really well. And these are things that are big in other parts of the world. It's not like it's really uncommon or this weird science. But it pretty much choked off and killed it completely. Okay? There was one profession, though, that actually survived it, and that's what chiropractic is. So if you guys don't know the history of chiropractic, I just want to run through this pretty quick and just talk about 1895, a man named D.D. Palmer, who was a magnetic healer. So remember we're talking about these natural doctors? One of the what was really big back in the day was magnet healing. So you would go and you'd actually put magnets on certain parts of the body, and it would cause these changes in the body. But he didn't make total sense to him. He started to wonder more and more why people got sick. Remember how Dr. Still, for the osteopaths, talked about blood causing disease? It didn't make sense to him because the blood that goes through your system goes to every organ. So if your blood was sick, why would only one organ get sick? So he started to kind of question that, and he started to get more and more into the nervous system. And at the same time, what happened was there was a janitor in his school named Harvey Lillard, who he overheard a conversation. And Harvey Lillard was telling somebody that worked in the same building that about 17 years ago he fell, he heard a pop in his neck, and his hearing left. So he went deaf. So D.D. Palmer talked to him, felt his neck, felt a huge bump on his neck. And he said, hey, come in and let me help you. So he put him down, and he gave this really crude, he just pushed really hard on that bone, and it made a really loud pop. And 3 days later, his hearing came back. So that's the start of chiropractic. And D.D. Palmer, of course, thought that he found the cure for deafness. So he put an ad in the paper saying, hey, if you know about, or if you're deaf, come see me at the Palmer, or at my house. And D.D. Palmer wanted to keep this to himself. He wanted to keep it a family thing. So what he did was he had all these people respond to his newspaper ad. Second person ever got adjusted, person was deaf. His hearing didn't come back. But he had a heart condition his whole life that completely healed up. So he started to get into it, and this is the development phase of chiropractic. He started to talk about, wow, what was going on, and talking about the nervous system and what was really happening. So from around 1895 until about 1925, there was this big research project where in the beginning, maybe about 20% of people responded well to chiropractic, but they were just feeling the spine for anything that was hot, thinking there was resistance there, and kind of just shoving on it, right? And then B.J. Palmer, D.D.'s son, convinced D.D. to open a school up. So in 1897, the Palmer School of Chiropractic opened up. And they started to teach this to people. Who do you think the first people were to learn this stuff?
Foreigners?
What's that?
Foreigners who believe
Wasn't
it?
foreigners.
The
It's actually
Palmers?
a lot of medical doctors took classes. And this is one of the big mistakes that they thought they did was having all these medical doctors come in, because what ended up happening was a lot of medical doctors were using chiropractic not as a separate healing art. What they would use it as is more of like an adjunct to their art, their practice. So they wouldn't understand the philosophy as, wow, the body is a self-healing organism. Let's open up the nervous system. What it was about was, hey, let's just add it to our bag of tricks and just kind of use it sparingly. Does it make sense? They didn't understand the power of what it was really doing. In any case, B.J. Palmer brings over the first X-ray machine, or the fifth X-ray machine over. He's the first person ever to X-ray the spine. Okay? At the time, doctors were saying it's impossible for a bone to be out of place putting pressure on a nerve. These bones don't move out of place. So he said, okay, let's get an X-ray. Takes the first X-ray, shows them what he's talking about. Okay? He also proves that what he would do is he would take 100 chiropractors, and at the time, people would just feel the spine. They would say, oh, I think this has gone this way, let's adjust it this way. So he started saying we need to X-ray these areas before we just adjust. We need to see the misalignment. And he had a lot of argument. A lot of people saying, now we can feel the misalignment. So what he would do is these experiments, he would line up like 100 chiropractors, and he'd have 100 other chiropractors stand behind each one, feel their spine, write down what they thought was out of place and how it was out of place, go through 100 chiropractors, 100 patients, and then they would start over and they would do it again. And they weren't allowed to see their original notes. So what he found was like, let's say I checked Mary Jo, I went 100 people again, then I checked Mary Jo again, my results would be completely different the second time around. It was very subjective, it wasn't objective. So they started to X-ray these people. And the results went from 20% up to like 50 or 60%. And then, again, remember, they would feel people's spines and look for heat. This engineer who got his life back from chiropractic, developed a machine to measure that objectively instead of just feeling it with your hand. And they started this thing called pattern work where they can actually go up the spine and they would measure the heat readings and know exactly where to look for the misalignments. So their percentages went a little bit better. And then eventually what happened was they discovered upper cervical care, that if you put this one back properly and you do it the right way, all the other readings clear out and it lasts longer. He actually had two groups of patients that would come to him. He would have people in Iowa, in the city of Davenport, that would come see him like a couple times a week. And then he'd have these farmers that would come from ways away. They would be able to make it in like once a month. And guess who got well quicker? The people who came in less often, who got adjusted less often. Instead of getting adjusted 3 times a week and getting adjusted over and over again, the people who got adjusted once a month got much better results. And that's when he started to realize it wasn't about how many times you adjust somebody, it's how long are you holding the adjustment. So in 1927, upper cervical care was found. But before that, this is why it started to get big. Remember over here, what's happening in 1910. Flexner report, this whole side of medicine going like this, and all the natural doctors doing, all the natural care going like this. Chiropractic was on the brink of extinction, especially during 1917. What else is going on in 1917? World War I. So World War I's going on, and chiropractic students were not exempt from the draft. So all of a sudden, all these people who were going to chiropractic school, not there anymore. Okay? So what ends up happening, though, is the Spanish flu. Comes through, wipes out 100 million people. I think I talked about this last week. Wipes through 100 million people in 18 months. One of the most devastating flus there was. So, and remember, we talked about this. What B.J. Palmer did was he put advertisements out saying, hey, if you want to protect yourself from this flu, come see a chiropractor, because when you have a healthy nervous system, you have a healthy immune system. And I read the stats off last week. It was something like out of 10,000 people in New York City who had seen a medical doctor, about 1,000 of them died. People who went to a chiropractor, I believe it was about, do you guys remember what it was? I believe it was
1,000, there was like one died.
Out of 10,000 people, I think for the one in New York City, it was about like, I think it was close to 100 people, if that. So it was like a 10 times more effective way of preventing it. And then in Iowa was the one you were thinking about, Joey. And the one in Iowa, there was about 5,000 people who got infected with the flu. And the ones that went to medical care, I think it was close to 250 people died. Versus in Davenport, Iowa, 5,000 people who came down with it, one person died. Went to see B.J. Palmer.
Wow.
So what happened was the early history of chiropractic had nothing to do with neck pain and back pain. It was about, hey, there's a whole different way to take care of yourself. You don't need to take drugs and surgery to take care of yourself. Have a healthy nervous system. Here was the proof. All these people actually became chiropractors. A lot of the people who got well said, wow, I want to devote my life to this. And a lot of the history of chiropractic, if you look at, like, for example, my upper cervical technique, or the machines that we use, these are engineers or people who were really in different industries, who were told they would never have a healthy life, they were sick, they had terminal cancer, things like that, who got adjusted and got their life back, devoted their life now to the chiropractic profession. So that's the early history of chiropractic. So what was happening was, while all these other things were going down, chiropractic got this huge boom upwards. Okay? 1927, sent upper cervical care. 1930, B.J. Palmer opens up his B.J. Palmer Research Clinic, all in upper cervical care. Starts to do amazing, amazing work. Chiropractic is growing and growing and growing. Think about this, guys. How long has homeopathic remedies been around? Anyone know?
Centuries.
Thousands and thousands of years. How long is osteopaths? Not so long. How about naturopaths? Thousands and thousands of years. Acupuncture, thousands and thousands of years. Well, chiropractic started in 1895. Within about 30 years, it was the second largest healing art in the world, behind medicine. Okay? Pretty wild, right?
Yeah.
So, and what built this was literally just results. People getting well and saying, wow, I need to do this. Okay? So, this is what's going on. And then in the 1940s, and it was settled in 1986, there was a court case that settled in 1986. Wilkes versus the AMA. This was a big court case that nobody knows about. Anyone here know about it? So what it was proven in the 1970s, a whistleblower came out from the American Medical Association. And he said, I have all this proof, here are all these documents. For decades and decades, the AMA has been out to get chiropractic. As early as the 1930s and 40s. So from this era, so think about this. What's going on here is this massive media ploy of, hey, this stuff is amazing, it's very scientific. Hey, this stuff is really horrible, stay away from it. So this guy actually, this whistleblower gave all this official documents to this chiropractor named Dr. Wilkes. So him and a whole bunch of other chiropractors sued the AMA. And what they proved was that since the 1930s, the American Medical Association had a whole division out to deny chiropractic science. So when studies would come out saying, oh, this is what happens under chiropractic care, it would get rid of it and deny it and hide all the information. It would send, so doctors would go to school. Their first day of school, they would get a little pocket manual that was pretty much, it was called like the Guide to Quackery, and it was all about chiropractic. And it had fake statistics in it, like how many people a year die from chiropractic. This would happen in nursing schools as well. And again, you guys can look this up. This is not like a conspiracy theory. It's literally settled in a court of law. The AMA had to give so much money to the American Medical, or to the chiropractic associations and chiropractic schools, but it was pretty much nothing. It was like a slap on the wrist. So, and doctors today still believe this. So a couple people always ask me, how come doctors don't know about this? It's literally, since its inception, they've been told this is quackery, it doesn't work, it kills people, it paralyzes people. So why would they ever refer people to it?
Which, that's possible if they're not doing it right, but, I mean, what are the odds of that?
What, someone dying of chiropractic
Yeah,
care?
like, it's so low.
It's, put it this way, I always refer to it this way. If you look at malpractice insurance, it's the easiest way to tell. Because insurance companies want to make money, essentially, and it's really easy to tell. So my malpractice insurance costs me less than $100 a month. And that's with all types of chiropractors in there. And what that means is that my risk of injuring somebody is extremely, extremely low. How you would kill somebody in chiropractic is somebody would probably have to have a fracture in their upper cervical spine, and you go in there and you wail away on it. Or they have something really serious that you don't know about. So if you take images like you're supposed to, there's the chances of killing somebody is pretty much non-existent. And that's even if you take the head and twist it like you see. Has anyone heard of people getting strokes from chiropractic and things like that?
No.
So it's a big campaign now that happened in the 1980s. After this settled, all of a sudden in the 90s, this big thing came out that chiropractors cause strokes. Okay? And where it came from was in Canada, there was this big symposium, and these guys did research on something called your vertebral artery. In your atlas, you have two main arteries that go through it called your vertebral arteries. And on some people, there's a deformity where one of the ligaments becomes calcified. And the arteries go through the bone and actually wrap around it. And in these people, they're a little bit more compromised. And what this research paper said is that these people, most of these people end up having a stroke at some point in their life from either turning their head then it mentioned a couple things. Turning their head too quick. If they're a smoker, they calcify it. If they lie, and some people put their head back in a barber's chair and get their hair shampooed, that can cause it. Or it said even getting like a quick manipulation of the neck. And the next day, guess what was in the paper? Chiropractors cause strokes, kill people. Right? So there's a lot of stuff, and once in a while people will say, I was looking on the internet and I found this happen. Or you'll hear, like there was a very famous Playboy model that actually died recently. What happened was, she was having this stroke and she went to a chiropractor. Here's the danger, this is what they're finding. Your chance of having a stroke if you go to a chiropractor actually decreases significantly, not increases. But when you are having this problem, when that artery gets cut, which is going to happen anyway, if you have this problem, you turn your head, and that artery gets cut, it's not like you just drop on the floor and die. It's like you slowly bleed out. So what happened, for example, with this Playboy model, was she had a fall, that happened to her, and the symptoms of this are you have a really bad headache. Really bad headaches and a lot of neck pain. So how many people do you think go to a chiropractor with really bad head pain or headaches and neck pain? That's what we see all day long. So what happens is this person goes in to see a chiropractor because they have neck pain, and the chiropractor doesn't recognize that they're having a stroke. And what they do is they send that person, or they don't send that person to a hospital, and that person goes home, and that person might die. Make sense? The problem with it is the only way you know that person is having a stroke with neck pain and head problems is if you do this really advanced imaging that costs $400 or $500 to do. So what that means is that every single person that walks into a chiropractor's office that has neck pain and headaches, you have to send them out for this imaging, and that's the only way you can know. It's pretty crazy, right? So pretty much it's just a bad luck of the draw. This chiropractor got such bad press, and really he was just looking for subluxation, found subluxation, put it back in, and just didn't know to send this person out, which nobody would really know. Make sense? Yeah. But this is the new marketing against chiropractic today of wow, it's so dangerous. Okay, it's not dangerous. Alright, so in any case, so this is the 1940s. It happens in 1961, B.J. Palmer dies. All of BJ's research mysteriously ends up catching a fire, burns fire. What ends up happening is pretty much some medical people get a hold of Palmer School. Palmer School starts to radically shift. Thank God a Life University by Dr. Sid Williams starts up, and another school called Sherman College in the 1970s. That carry on BJ's tradition, but Palmer School becomes kind of absorbed by the American Medical Association. Okay, and that's essentially what's happening to the profession. Remember osteopaths, how different they were? So what essentially happened to them was the American Medical Association grabbed a hold of them, and now when you go to a DO, is there really much of a difference between a DO and an MD? They're very, very similar, and that's what they're trying to do still with chiropractic. So there are chiropractors today, out of like 20 chiropractic schools, about 18 of them are very medically based. They're pretty much run by people who are very on board with the AMA. And guess what most chiropractors are fighting for today? The ability to give prescriptions out to people. There's a big fight in the profession because there's a lot of chiropractors who want to give prescriptions out, which goes totally against what we really believe in. Make sense?
They just want to do that to make more money.
pretty much. There's a lot of people who didn't get into med school who go to chiropractic school. There's that part of it. There's a lot of people, but you go to chiropractic school, you're not taught the philosophy and the belief system behind the foundation of chiropractic. Most people believe chiropractic is, oh, you have neck pain and back pain, you go see a chiropractor, and they're there to treat your symptom. Not of a, wow, it's a whole different healing art all to itself, and really the spiritual implications of chiropractic. Does that make sense? Gets a little bit worse. In the 1970s, this is where chiropractors shot themselves in the foot. What they were fighting for insurance. So what happens in the 1970s is insurance companies, which is a medically based industry, says we will accept chiropractors not as a separate healing art. We'll accept so think about acupuncture, right? What do you go to acupuncture for? It's a separate healing art. What do you go to a naturopath for? It's a separate healing art. Some people don't go to MDs, they go to naturopaths. That's what chiropractic always was about. And now it became about, hey, we'll accept you for neck pain, back pain, and headaches. And guess what? We'll give you lots of money for it. Which starts what's called the Mercedes 80s. Which is this. Hey, I need to see you 3 to 5 times a week. You come in, I'm not going to charge you. Don't worry about your copay. And meanwhile, what's that chiropractor doing?
Charging.
Billing up like crazy the insurance, and the insurance back then didn't care. Whatever you put down, boom, you're getting reimbursed, you're getting reimbursed, you're getting reimbursed. So you start seeing imagine going to a chiropractor, imagine you guys saying, oh, I want to come in, I'm like, hey, I'll see you 3 times a week, and it's free to you. Is it really free to that person? Where are they paying for that? Yeah, their premiums. So people's premiums start going up, and people start getting pissed, and the insurance companies look at it, and they say to the chiropractor, wow, we're going to stop, we're going to have to ask you more questions now. Is this really necessary? So then in the late 80s, early 90s, guess what happens? Chiropractors start to fight for other rights, like for example, doing physical therapy in their offices. And that's what it becomes about. So you have these seminars that come out on how can you bill insurance companies and make the most money. And there are all these things that are out there today. So when you get into a car accident and you go to a chiropractor, what are they doing to you?
They're building the case.
Yes. They know now the insurance will limit how much they charge for an adjustment. So on top of that, they're icing or heating your back, giving you a massage, doing e-stim, doing cold laser, billing insurance, billing insurance, billing insurance, billing insurance. So within a month or two, they can charge you $10,000 just like that. I mean, it's wild. Right? So that's the history of chiropractic. Pretty wild stuff, right? It's gone a really far along the way, and this is what you start to see is this is grabbing a hold of this and trying to absorb it, and it's getting pretty darn close to doing it too. Okay? So
Today?
Yeah, today it's closer than ever. There's actually chiropractors in certain states now that can actually prescribe medication. Right? It's really going downhill. So that's kind of the outlook of the profession right now. Right? But there are people like upper cervical doctors who are still like, we still have the philosophy, but now they're trying to fight to get rid of our ability to take x-rays.
Oh, wow.
So imagine that. Remember, like there are people I've x-rayed before and they have half an atlas. Or they have no stability in their atlas. It's not there. I can't adjust it. If I would have adjusted that person, I would literally have paralyzed that person. And they want to take away our ability to take x-rays and see that.
Wow.
Right? Pretty scary stuff. So,
How can they do that, though?
this is, I want you guys to realize this is what our healthcare system is based on. On the very bottom are the patients. Where do most people get their healthcare system and their information from? Their doctors. Where do the doctors get their information from? So there's a little before that. There's actually government mandates of how they have to operate. The government pretty much directs the doctors and tells doctors what they can and can't do or how to do it.
They push those flu shots up.
Yes. I mean, think about this. You will lose your medical license too. Like if somebody comes in with high cholesterol and you don't tell them to give them cholesterol medications, you can lose your license. You know? So somebody could be a really great doctor and they're still like, whoa, I have to operate within these laws. Who tells the government? Big Pharma. That's why it's crazy when we get into this and we fight about politics so much. We're fighting at this level. Who's controlling all of it?
Illuminati.
That's up here, Joey. So who owns it all? Big families like the Rockefellers.
Is that they're the Illuminati?
And today it might not even be their family, it's their foundations. Right? Or the Carnegie Foundation, the JP Morgan Foundation. That's who starts the whole cycle going downward. Telling the media what to do. So here's pretty much it. You have Rockefeller. Where are they pumping their money into? They're investing their money. Remember, look at this. What are they putting money into? Schools and what else?
Advertising.
Yeah, advertising, media, and also into government. What's it called? Lobbyists.
And the insurance.
So, what happens with these schools? What are they teaching kids to do, or the doctors to do?
How to run a business.
Yeah, right.
Put all of this money into Big Pharma. There was a big protest in Harvard Medical School back, I don't know, maybe like 10 years now ago, that they actually protested because one of the students got into a fight with the professor about taking care of people because the professor was pretty much telling people to give out these medications and this is the medication you give out. And the kid was asking really intelligent questions, and there was a big fight in the classroom, and he went home and he researched who's funding the schools, and guess who's funding all the medical schools? Pharmaceutical companies. So the kids went on strike saying, like, we do not want to be owned by the big pharmaceutical companies. This is not right. This is what you're teaching us. But essentially this puts money and huge profits back into their pockets, and it's this onward cycle. Yeah?
The insurance companies, where would they put them? Right there, big pharma or government?
I would probably put them up here. That's where I would put them. Because let's talk about that too, because there's a lot of talk about this, guys. The talk about our country today is who pays for healthcare. It's this big fight. Everyone's fighting over it all the time. Like, oh, do we do free healthcare, which is not free? Where does it come out of? It comes out of all of our pockets collectively. Versus, do we do self-pay, where we pay ourselves and have a direct relationship with a doctor? But this is the discussion that I want to see happen. No one's talking about the type of care people are getting. I want you to realize something. If you're going to the doctor and going to hospitals a lot, are you healthier or more sick?
More sick,
Right? So again, we have one of the worst healthcare. What kills more people in our country than anything else?
Operations.
Our healthcare system. Our healthcare system kills more people than heart disease. It kills more people than cancer. So now imagine opening this system up to more people. Is that going to make us healthier or less healthier? It's going to make our country even more sick. It's going to open up even more money for all of this stuff. Like I'm saying, they give away free flu shots every year. Are they really free?
No.
Who's paying for those flu shots? Yes. What happens is we stop saying, hey, like, money coming out of our direct pocket. What happens is the government decides where our money goes, and it's going towards these big companies, and they're paying for it. And whether or not you get a flu shot or not, you're paying for it. That's what's happening. Yeah, go ahead.
I used
Jen.
to work at the health department years ago, and then once, like every 2 weeks, these drug reps used to come in, and they would like give us all their free samples and buy us sandwiches and Chinese food to try, like get us to buy their stuff. It was like the doctors, the nurses. I was an HIV counselor, employment counselor. They would like feed all of us and like just give us the stuff and have the doctors push their stuff, whether or not
They still
it's
do.
good. I know. And that was just like, and this was that was a public health department. It wasn't even
Yeah. Well, like I said, on this, it's like I said, guys, it's literally business, and like it's all trickling down. So it's like we always fight over this, and this is like where we put all of our energy towards, and it's like really what should be happening is putting all of the responsibility on us.
Just stop going to the doctors.
Like, who's responsible for your health?
You are.
We are.
We're supposed to be.
Right? Do you need, like, what do you need to be healthy? Is it really expensive to be healthy?
No.
It all comes from within us. It takes us waking up from it and realizing, wow, health is deep inside of us, okay? And by the way, why is our healthcare so expensive? Does anyone know? This is the other thing we always fight over, like, wow, why is our healthcare so expensive? We need to bring the cost down, and it's like, oh, all these people are so...
Are we taking care of people that don't have health care?
Right?
Is that why it's one of the
No, it's
reasons?
even more important than that.
And doctors are doing the Mercedes 80s thing.
Yeah, right.
Alex is
Taking
nailing it. It's not just chiropractic, it's doing the Mercedes 80s thing. Like I was saying, I have a friend that was a chiropractor who worked in a multidisciplinary practice. They were doing physical therapy and all this stuff. And what they did was they would buy knee braces for $40, and they would literally charge insurance companies like $800-900 for the little knee brace. But why does that happen?
Because
Because they
get away with it.
can.
So why can they though?
Because it's not being monitored.
It's an invisible thing. So I want you to realize something. Here's a patient right here. Here's a doctor right here. Patient goes to doctor. Doctor says, hey, pay me $900 for knee brace. What do you say?
Hell no.
Say, I'm good. Thanks. I'll hobble. I'll be fine. Okay? That's what happens. Or they might say, let me talk to other doctor and say, how much is your knee brace? And they say, it's only $70. Doctor's still making a profit of $30 on a knee brace, right? And would you rather pay $900 or $70 for the same knee brace? I mean, it's that simple, right? But that's not our system, is it?
No.
We fight over because we think we need this thing called insurance. Okay? So you have an insurance agency here, right in the middle. So patient goes to doctor, says how much, doctor says don't worry about it. Doctor sends tons of money, says, hey, you need to pay me $900. Insurance company says, okay, let me charge it on the back end to this person in the premium.
But they do cap it though. There's, with my own medical bills, the insurance companies have gotten savvy to that. The prices still have gone
Yeah.
are outrageous. But they put a cap on it now because that has been so gouged.
Because and they have to make a profit.
Yeah, exactly.
So if they just do it, and it's not like they accept anything you charge,
No, they
but
don't.
there's an allowable list. So for
Yeah.
example, it used to be a time in our country where you went to the hospitals didn't make a huge profit off of you. You would go and you would pay direct pay, and the hospitals would make a little bit of profit, just like any business, right? But insurance started to come in and said, hey, we'll send you so many people, but you have to give us a percentage of the money, essentially. That's the whole system, right? But then what happened was, and you can look this up, what happened was the hospital said, wow, we can't afford to pay you what you want. So what happened was they made this whole thing, I forgot what it's called, you might know, it's an actual book they can charge. It's like a allowable list of what they charge. Essentially the hospitals made up a ridiculous amount, like double, triple the cost of what it should be. And then they pay the insurance companies half of that. But you still get charged that whole amount. It's a for-profit business. But essentially, picture it this way. The reason why healthcare is so expensive is because we are not taking responsibility for our own health and our own money and what it costs. It's really that simple. It's just direct payment. You say, hey, how much do you charge? That much? Okay, let me make my decision if this is worth it or not. Not like, what's my insurance? What's my copay? Let me not even understand what my doctor is charging this insurance company. Right? That's kind of what's happening. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, go ahead, Jacob.
I think it's even kind of simpler than that in the fact that patients, based on the fact that Medicare, Medicaid, and all the health and insurance companies have kind of given patients this sense that the doctor knows best. And so patients would just relinquish their research and their knowing, about
Yes.
what are real costs or what are real needs. Because, judging from, parents and everything, they would go to the doctor at the beginning of a sneeze, and whatever the doctor says, boom, you
Just
know,
listen to
they
it.
do.
You expect somebody that goes to school for 12 years to be somebody that you can trust
Right.
if the government says
Well, I
that you
just
should
think
trust
that,
them.
you know, doctors are gods,
And
and,
hand it over everything.
you know, and
You're right, Jerry. It really comes down to the really simple fact of inverting this. Like this is
Yeah.
really like you have total control of your health. And when you really get into it, what's really scary is the education that we're all getting, myself included. What I got in school is a joke. It's so medicalized now, it's ridiculous. You see how subjective it all is? The nutrition they teach is abysmal. MDs get no medical, get no nutritional advice. We get about a year's worth of it, and it's ridiculous. It's not real education on what's healthy eating. Make sense? Yeah.
What I'm saying, what you just said, I also heard that years ago, before doctors went to school, like they would ask them, how many of you believe in preventive medicine? And like 50% of them would raise their hands, or 60%. Then once they're in medical school, then they ask them how many, maybe 5 hands went up because of the way they've been bamboozled by the pharmaceutical industry and to that they don't do prevention anymore. There's no
Right.
afraid to even believe in it.
Right. Awesome. So does this make sense, guys? So I really hope we start talking about the real stuff, about like, wow, what actually is health? What makes us healthy? Is it really an expensive thing? But yeah, I think you're right, Jerry. It really comes back to understanding that we actually have all the power inside of us to be healthy. You don't need other people to be healthy. It's something that's inherently in us. I think all of us already know that. And it's us getting off of all of this brainwashing that's literally been coming through media campaigns for about 100 years now. Okay? Anybody have any questions or comments?
Well, isn't it also getting back to like food is your medicine and medicine is your food?
Well, it's why you guys are coming here. I think it's even higher than that. It's about life energy. And understanding that the energy coursing through you is really the key. And with food, the food part of it is there's food that adds to it, and there's food that literally sucks it out and drains it from you. You know? There's a tunnel within you that your lifeline sits in. You make sure that's open. Going out, getting sunlight, getting fresh air. I mean, stuff that we've all been taught. Like I said, where these people got their information, it's been around for thousands of years. Hey, be outside, get sunlight, put your feet in the ground. Pretty simple stuff.
Yeah.
You know? Do you have a question, Margie?
I was gonna say, when our special needs son was 2 years old, we were doing craniosacral therapy with him.
Yeah.
You know, and we did it, we were living in Louisville and here, going back and forth at the time, so we did it in Louisville, and then we did it at Up Ledger in Palm Beach, and then we went up to a homeopathic doctor in West Palm to do it. And I remember this doctor, this pediatric specialist from Johns Hopkins, we were in talks with them, and he asked us what we were doing with Hunter, and I said, you know, these alternative treatments, and he's like, and when I told him craniosacral therapy, he's like, how much money are you gonna spend on that before you don't do it anymore? And I said, as much money until I see that it's not working anymore.
Right.
I mean, I couldn't even believe he said that to me over the phone. I hadn't even met him yet, you know, we were just talking to him on the phone, he said this to me, I'm like, boy, you got a lot of nerve.
Yeah. I mean, it's wild when you get into it. It really is wild. Like, some of the stuff I've heard it's just, some of the people I've met, like I said, I used to do presentations to all the local doctors and try to say, hey, this is what we do. And, you know, you meet a couple really awesome people who are open. But most people, it's just like they snicker at you.
Yeah.
You know, I've had patients who literally, like I had a woman who was literally deaf in her ear, got adjusted, was deaf for years and years and years, went to her ENT, and the guy was like, oh, I don't know, who knows, you're deaf for life. Got adjusted, got her hearing back in her ear. Went to her ENT and told him, and he just laughed at it. He was like, no way. You would think that's your profession, like, wow, I need to know about this.
Yeah, he has no
I told
Yeah.
my doctor.
It's
Yeah.
a threat to him.
I was just thinking that.
It's threatening. I think that, you
I
know,
told
that's
my-
why half of the doctors who come up with like Gershon theory and everything.
Right?
What? He had to go to Mexico
Yeah.
because the AMA kicked him out of
Yeah.
America. You know, 'cause
Yeah.
they're afraid.
It's wild. Did you say, Jay?
I brought up chiropractic to my pediatrician like 2 years ago when I first started coming, and he just stopped me like right when I said chiropractor. I was like, yeah, so my chiropractor. And he's like, ha. And he just started
Right.
shaking his head and like he's like,
Yeah.
and I was like, what is it? All right, never mind then.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you just learn to love and like let go, and
It
it's
was
just where they're
funny.
at.
I had a
but-
regular doctor years ago who had the reaction, someone told me, don't ask about chiropractors, you can't stand chiropractors, and he also said to me, and that's a bunch of BS with the wheat, unless you're celiac, there's no such thing as gluten sensitivity. I said, where's this like coming from? You know?
Yeah, like I was saying, I said in my lecture this week, I have a friend who had irritable bowel syndrome, went to like her gastroenterologist, and didn't even ask what foods are you putting in.
Right.
And it's just like,
Hello.
you know, you're a doctor of this tube that you put food in all day. You would think that that would be one of the most important questions,
I just
but
wanted to give them meds.
it's just like it's schooling. It's who we are, and it's not just that profession. It's chiropractic too, guys. I mean, chiropractic school is just as bad. You go to chiropractic school, and it's just like there's very little thought. And luckily, I went to this university that we talked a lot about philosophy in it. But you got to seek it out still. It's getting worse, not better. But when you seek it out, you ask the right questions. It makes a big difference. But most people, you just go to schooling, and what is schooling other than like, oh, if this happens, do this. If this happens, do this. Not thinking critically about situations and why you're doing something. Make sense?
Well, thank God we have you.
Yes.
I'm good.
Yes.
Hey, tomorrow night we're having family Thanksgiving at the New Vegan. It's $35 per person. Korea's got detail. We're pretty packed right now.
Yeah, really.
So
The place is small.
it's a small place. I think we got like 40 people going. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be a cool jam, cool party. Guys, have a happy Thanksgiving. Love you guys. All right, we'll see you next week. Okay.